Feeling good on a Friday show. It is Orange and Blue today. Cecil Lammy, Andrew Mason, and as of this show, we're still waiting for the Cooper Kupp decision, but we're also thinking about other wide receivers and really, Mace, kind of is there a need for a wide receiver addition for Bo Nix?
Well, you remember Super Bowl week, Sean Payton, when he went through his must-haves and needs on the roster, said the Joker was a must-have, and then the next level was a need. He did say veteran wide receiver was a need, but of course, then he also talked about how much he liked the wide receivers that he had on hand, the young wide receivers. So are we talking about need Cooper Kupp level or need, like last year, Josh Reynolds level? That's the thing. I think maybe we're looking at need Josh Reynolds level like he had last year, and not Cooper Kupp level, or at least Cooper Kupp with the pay that he seems to want as of right now, which is why as we record this, he's unsigned. I've got an audience, by the way, and the audience wants to be acknowledged.
Hello,
Hi,
Charlotte. How's it going?
Good.
There you go. I need a bow like that in my hair.
How many places did you dance today, by the way?
5.
5 places.
Whoa.
High school.
Yes, see,
Whoa.
Charlotte is a
Wait,
champion, is a champion Irish dancer, and it's St. Patrick's Day weekend, so this is like Super Bowl weekend for her. So she's all over the place. It's a big deal this weekend.
Yes, it is. Let me go to that.
All right.
Nice.
So
There you
yeah.
go. Always good having an audience. Always good. Charlotte's the biggest star on this show, by the way.
she is this weekend, no doubt about that. Like this is her time. I'm just in her orbit this weekend. This is her solar system. I'm just a planet orbiting around her sun right now.
Yeah, and as a girl dad, that's a great way to be, Mace.
Yep.
Yesterday, we didn't get to talk about Amari Cooper. I'm not sure where you want to start or which players you want to start with, but we didn't get a chance as we went through other options for the Broncos in free agency. And boy, people gravitated to our J.K. Dobbins talk because I brought that up today on Dover and Cecil on the Fan, and the text line blew up on our idea of like, yeah, Dobbins is, a guy that you could play and start, but also throw everybody off that scent of your running backs.
Yeah, and by the way, Miles Sanders now off the board. We talked about him yesterday, and
To
now
Dallas.
he's a Dallas Cowboy. That's Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams. That's a really interesting running back room because it's as if Brian Schottenheimer and Jerry Jones are saying, okay, we've got 2 dented cards here. We figure one of them we're going to be able to straighten out.
But what was that talk? And I'm glad you brought that up, Mace, because here's what the talk became. Does that take him out of the Ashton Genty at 12 if he would be there? So if you get a J.K. Dobbins, people say, does that take you out of Omarion Hampton at 20? So that's all part of this conversation, Mace. And so because of our thicker conversation about Dobbins, we didn't get a chance to go over some wide receivers.
Yeah, but it's a good chance to do that today because the market's more than Cooper Kupp.
Yes.
And there may actually be some better options than Cooper Kupp, really.
Okay. All right. So let's jump in there. And Sean Payton does like those young wide receivers, but adding another veteran presence to the room for the right price. And again, as of this recording, we have a alleged $15 million price tag. The Athletic had that price. Others are paying $14 million. Mace, that's like twice as much as I would pay for Cooper Kupp. So
that when I heard that, and I mean, that just made me, that just kind of took my breath away, actually.
Unbelievable.
When I heard that price. And that's why you were getting the reports out of New England of the Patriots saying, whoa, that's a little bit too much here. Now, the other interesting thing, and you can read a little bit more about this at denversports.com, was the whole conflicting reports, Adam Schefter and Jordan Schultz saying that, Broncos are going to be in the mix. But then Diana Rossini of The Athletic on the Scoop City podcast with Chase Daniel. And by the way, Chase Daniel, of course, a former Sean Payton quarterback. I'm going to play the segment here. and I did post this on social media last night, but I'm going to play the relevant segment here talking about Cooper Kupp and the Broncos. Here's Diana Rossini talking about that.
Okay, so you have teams like, I can tell you the Seattle Seahawks are poking around on this thing. The Packers are looking at this. The Saints got their eye on it.
Mm-hmm. Don't go to the Saints.
Teams that I thought would be in that are not in on the Cooper Kupp market, the Denver Broncos.
I was going to say the Broncos.
Patriots.
Why not the Broncos?
Texans.
Why?
I think they just are valuing different players at this moment. They don't
really have anyone outside Cortland Sutton. Like I feel like a 1-2 punch in Sean Payton's offense would make sense.
I don't know who they're waiting for, unless he thinks that he can draft somebody. I've never gotten the sense that wide receiver was on the top of the Denver Broncos wish list of players they were trying to bring in this offseason outside of the draft. So we'll see what moves they make there.
Okay.
Interesting, I thought. And so shows you kind of where this is going. You know, it's who do you want to believe on the level of Broncos interest? I think the Broncos interest is defined by just how much it's going to cost. I don't think the Broncos interest involves paying an 8-figure annual salary to Cooper Kupp.
No.
When I said $7 million, I do actually think if the Broncos have interest, it's somewhere in that ballpark.
Which means he's probably not coming here regardless. And my brain goes to Diana Rossini talks to Sean Payton.
Yeah.
Is friendly with Sean Payton. And then my brain goes to Adam's connections with the Broncos are a little bit different than they used to be. So is this from Kupp's side? You know what I mean? Is Kupp's camp, a lot of agent fed information, is Kupp's camp saying like, whoa, we'd really like to go to Denver? And Sean Payton moves the needle. If you're another GM and you hear Sean Payton wants him, why Sean Payton want him? Maybe I want him too.
Correctamundo. I think right now, Cooper Kupp wants Denver more than Denver wants Cooper Kupp.
Let that one breathe a little bit, man. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, but doesn't that say a lot about Denver?
I think it does.
Evan Ingram wanted Denver.
They're back,
chose
baby.
the Broncos over the Chargers. He chose Bo Nix over Justin Herbert. Marinate on that for a moment. He chose Bo Nix over Justin Herbert. Chose Sean Payton over Jim Harbaugh. That matters too.
Sure.
Jim Harbaugh's no slouch, right? He chose Bo Nix over Justin Herbert. Players want to be in Denver again. It's good times again. Denver is maybe not quite a destination. We're not yet talking about like, oh, guys flocking there like they want to be around Patrick Mahomes. It's not quite there yet, but it's rising bit by bit. The Broncos are climbing back up. And because of that, it means if you're talking about the Broncos wanting to add a veteran receiver, why does the conversation have to be simply Cooper Kupp? It can be Amari Cooper. It can be Keenan Allen, who had not a great season, but not a bad season with Chicago last year, with Caleb Williams going through all the rookie ups and downs.
Right.
You could interest me in Keenan Allen.
Mm-hmm.
We're only 1 year removed from Keenan Allen having a 1,200-yard season with the Chargers, just like we're only 1 year removed from Amari Cooper having a 1,200-yard season with the Browns. And I'm looking at these players, and and you might be able to get them, certainly, I think you can certainly get them at price tags that are below certainly what Cooper Kupp wants right now.
Yeah.
And if you want to bring in a veteran presence that has some, as Vic Fangio would say, oomph, these guys have had better seasons more recently than Cooper Kupp.
Mm-hmm.
Cooper Kupp's not the only name if you want to add a proven, quality, veteran, 30-something receiver.
I want to put up this slide that you made with Amari Cooper there, Mace, because for me, and Buffalo didn't really ask him to do a whole lot. So we can't really look at what he didn't do with Buffalo and be like, his game's fallen off. I think Amari Cooper is the type of guy that has more game left, more gas in the tank, if you will, than is a Cooper Kupp. Plus, Amari Cooper doesn't get in the way of Marvin Mims. I do not want to block, roadblock, speed bump, whatever. And you could say, you know, Cooper Kupp could teach Marvin Mims. Yeah, well, I'm not convinced that Cooper Kupp would be more productive than Marvin Mims taking another step. Macy took a giant step last year. Maybe he takes another big step this year. And I like Cooper on the outside, Sutton on the outside, Marvin Mims working underneath. Sounds pretty good to me.
Sounds pretty good to me as well. And the question you have to ask yourself with all these players is, are they going to be able to handle a role in which there could be something of a passing of the baton?
Sure. Yeah. And Amari Cooper already is, you know, he's already been that.
Yes.
As we saw with Cleveland when he was still very productive, but teaching a younger Jerry Jeudy there.
Yes.
Mark Cooper can cut a rug, man. He can get open. He's still got some speed.
It's not just about one guy. And the other thing is, let's say we go down kind of the next level. If it's a Josh Reynolds type, okay? At that point, we start diving into some different players, but you've got someone like Jamison Crowder on the market, good route runner.
Yep, we saw him at the Senior Bowl years ago.
Way back. He's, you know, he's coming to the end of his career, but maybe you can kind of wring the last out of him. I mean,
sure.
I don't think you're going to bring Josh Reynolds back. He's
no, but you mentioned with Josh Reynolds, isn't Tyler Lockett still available?
Tyler Lockett's on the market. The Seahawks let him go. Yes.
Yep. Yeah. Think about that. Timmy Patrick signed today back with the Lions. Congrats to Timmy. We love him. Tyler Lockett on the market, Amari Cooper on the market, Cooper Kupp on the market. So Tim Patrick got a deal before these other guys.
Well, it's about price point.
Okay.
It's price point and fit, right? Detroit found Tim Patrick to be a perfect fit for what they were doing at that moment. Of course, with the Broncos, it was they wanted to get the next Tim Patrick out there. They wanted to get the reps for Devon Vele, who right there on draft weekend, they made the Tim Patrick comp right there when they had the press conference the day they drafted Devon Vele. I mean, they basically laid it out in that moment. That they saw that in him. So, you know, sometimes we're talking, you know, yesterday about you get the little okey doke there, but sometimes they tell you the truth.
Yes.
It's there. In that case, it was truth when they said, hey, he's got some Tim Patrick in him. That's the comp. That's the vision. And that vision came to fruition a little sooner than perhaps expected. And that's in the mix. That's in the mix as well, because Devon Vele is going to get his reps. I think the real question with Devon Vele is, because you drafted him at a much older age than most draft picks, what's the ceiling for him? Because he's going to get towards the age of 30 pretty, you know, obviously much more quickly than most of these guys. It's sort of the reverse of the Harold Fannin conversation, where we talk about Fannin now being an option for the Broncos because you draft Evan Engram, so you can roll the dice on a tight end who's only going to be 20 years old when you pick him, and you can take the long runway with him because you have Evan Engram take those snaps.
I love the attraction that the Broncos are now, Mace. I've often said life is like tall grade school. I think maybe it's more like high school with money, because years ago, the Broncos would be at the high school dance and they'd be like, can you dance with me? Can you dance with me? Will you dance with me? You dance with me? Now you can sit there and they'll come up to you and ask to dance.
And they would ask to dance. And of course, how would we parallel the money part of it with asking to dance? You'd ask to dance, but you'd have to show your car keys.
Or you know that you're good at dancing. You've got good moves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I think it's actually you'd have to show your car keys, like, "Hey, I'm driving a Lexus tonight," or something. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I've got a nice, I've
You
got
want
a
to ride in
nice
a
car.
Lexus?
Yeah, that's the equivalent of saying I'm going to pay you more than these other teams. So go back 2 years. The Broncos had to pay Mike McGlinchey what they paid him.
Yep.
They had to give him that contract.
Yep.
At right tackle. There was no other option for two reasons. First of all, they needed to stop the revolving door at right tackle. And of course, they had tried with a big ticket signee 4 years earlier, at right tackle with Jawan James.
Oh boy.
They tried giving him a lot of money and that bombed completely.
Yes.
But Jawan James, I mean, there were warning flags that should have been heeded before. The fact that he dealt with a significant injury almost every other year.
Every other year, like clockwork.
Yes. Mike McGlinchey, he'd had some injuries before, but they weren't of the same nature. And certainly a better locker room presence to the point where he was a leader, his team captain his first year. So you had to give him that contract that had the high average per year salary, like his, you know what Mike McGlinchey's cap number is this year, Cease?
What is it?
His cap number this year is $23.775 million.
It's pretty healthy.
Yes. Now the average per year comes out less than that. It comes out to about I believe his APY is 17.5 before they put the void year on when they did the restructure. But we're getting into some big cap numbers for Mike McGlinchey, but they had to do that because they were coming off of 5-12. There were questions about Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson had just had the worst season of his career. Now you've got a young quarterback. You've just been to the playoffs. Sean Payton's established his program. Hey, there were questions about Sean Payton coming in here 2 years ago. Can he do it in the same? Can he do it again?
Yeah.
The second act, it doesn't always work. Mike Shanahan didn't do particularly well in his second stop, although I would argue that was less about Mike Shanahan and more about you had to work for Dan Snyder.
Jimmy Johnson didn't do much of anything with the Dolphins.
Well, they did go to the playoffs 3 times. They weren't bad. Like Jimmy Johnson didn't have a losing season with Miami. And like I said, they got to be a perennial playoff team. I don't think Jimmy Johnson failed with Miami.
Didn't get him a ring though. And
I
that's
know.
what comes with guys like Jimmy Johnson and guys like Sean Payton. That's what that comes with.
But the thing is though, he also inherited a team that was a perennial playoff team. So I do get that. Jimmy Johnson did fine, but he didn't make them better than they were doing under Don Shula, because in the 6 previous years with Don Shula, they had not had a losing season. They'd been to the playoffs 4 times, and they'd had 5 winning seasons. So basically, it was the same. So Jimmy Johnson just kind of he kept the boat sailing, right?
Yep.
Sean Payton has improved it. So he's done a good job already. But like you said, it's going to be defined by whether he gets this team to a Super Bowl. And I would argue he's got a much more difficult task in Denver than he had in New Orleans because of the neighborhood he's in. The neighborhood being the AFC.
Yes.
The AFC West with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in Kansas City. And then beyond that in the AFC with Josh Allen in Buffalo, with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. Yes, with Justin Herbert in Los Angeles, although it's a very good sign that Evan Engram chose you over them. You love that. And even though they underachieved this past year going 9-8, you don't like having Joe Burrow and company in Cincinnati. Although, by the way, did you see the reports from Friday about they're they're well down the path of getting T. Higgins and Jamar Chase re-signed. Like things are progressing in terms of the negotiations on the contracts.
Does Trey Hendrickson still want traded?
You know what? That is starting to look like a mansion built on stilts.
Yeah.
Like you're going to have this amazing house.
Mind blowing.
But what's the foundation? Because you're going to have Burrow, Chase, Higgins as a trio, 2 receivers and a quarterback. That's as good as there's ever been. I mean, that's like think of the how many times have you seen a group 2 receivers and a quarterback that at that level, right? Swan, Stallworth, Bradshaw.
Yeah.
It's pretty rare.
Yeah.
I mean, the Broncos had Rod Smith, and McCaffrey, John Elway, but I would argue with Cincinnati, Joe Burrow's on a Hall of Fame trajectory, Jamar Chase is on a Hall of Fame trajectory. Unfortunately, Rod's not going to be a Hall of Famer. Only John Elway is going to be a Hall of Famer from those 3.
Right.
So,
what about the Marks brothers? Since we're talking Dolphins, let's go a little bit further back.
Ooh, yeah.
Marks brothers were pretty good, man.
They were.
Mark Clayton, Mark Duper, and some guy named Dan Marino, man.
Back in the 80s. And actually, it's funny that's
Washington had 3.
Yeah, the posse.
Clark, Art Monk, Ricky Sanders.
But the Marks brothers is such a good comp because what was the fate of those Dolphins teams in the mid to late 80s? Mm-hmm. They put up a lot of points.
Yep.
And yet after they lost the AFC Championship game in 85 to New England, it was a lot of 8-8, 8-7. I think there was a 6-10 season in there. They didn't start. They had about 4 years where they were pretty dadgum mediocre because they couldn't stop anybody.
Cincinnati.
Yeah.
You're going to put up a bunch of yards. Can't stop anybody.
Oh, the entertainment value on Bengals games is fantastic. That's why I say they should take Broncos, Bengals when they're drawing up the schedule. And right now, Bengals at Broncos, they should put that in Sharpie on Thanksgiving night or Christmas night. Because you're going to get a heck of a game. Most Bengals Broncos games, they're either very watchable or something crazy happens. Either way, it's must-see TV. You want that in prime time. So just put it in prime time, put it on a holiday when everyone's watching. And I'm saying this selfishly because I don't mind holiday games when they're at home. I don't want a holiday game on the road, but a holiday game at Empower Field at Mile High, sign me up, man. I'm all in for that.
Chef's kiss, right?
Yes.
Chef's kiss.
And it's been a long time since we had a holiday game. The last Thanksgiving game at Empower Field at Mile High was all the way back in 2009. Thanksgiving night against the New York Giants. It's time for another one.
Yeah.
And I think the Bengals game be a great choice. But yeah, that Bengals Broncos game in December. I mean, were you not entertained? Were you driven crazy? Yes. Didn't force a punt until overtime. And that's part of the reason why we're sitting here talking about Talanoa Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw being Broncos today because of the defensive failures against Cleveland, Indianapolis when they couldn't contain Jonathan Taylor, Cincinnati, no punts forced against until overtime, and Buffalo in the playoffs, worst time of possession against the Broncos in 41 years. That's why Greenlaw and Hufanga are in Denver today. But it was entertaining, no doubt.
It was. They're here to be stoppers for this team. Who's here to be helpers for Bo Nix on that offense? Final verdict, Mace, and really it could be Crowder, it could be Lockett, maybe Kupp signs tonight. We are on call, just programming note. We're on call if the Broncos were to sign Kupp. We're going to do another show at whatever time we can get it in. As you know, we have lives, everybody. But like, to just a final verdict as we wrap it up, like, do they need it? Do they need a veteran? Because my vote is no. I wouldn't mind Jameson Crowder for a few million, 4 million. I wouldn't mind Tyler Lockett for 5 million. But do they need it? My answer's probably no.
It's not a pressing need. You do have a veteran presence with Courtland Sutton. I'm okay if they don't cross this off the list. I think they've got a good group. One more in there, certainly it'd be nice to have another target, and you'd feel better about the depth, as I've got dog visitors now. But it's not the most urgent of things. And remember last year, Josh Reynolds, they brought him in. I believe it was about a week and a half into the new league year before Josh Reynolds became a Denver Bronco. So it's one of those things you kind of marinate on, and then you bring him in. That kind of almost like fourth or fifth wave when things kind of settle down a little bit. So that's kind of I think that's the right needle to thread if they do bring somebody in. And maybe that's the thing that happens at running back as well. At this point, my vote would be J.K. Dobbins based on who's around.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just enough to where you keep everybody guessing. If you have one veteran receiver and you have J.K. Dobbins and punter, you can just bring in anybody. I actually think, Cease, the tactic on punter may well end up being just have somebody or somebody's in OTAs, training camp. It may look a lot like kicker 2 years ago, where you have a competition, but effectively they're in competition with anyone who might be cut around the league. And then if there's somebody they want who becomes available, instead of that player being exposed to waivers or being cut, they make a trade for that player right before the cut to 53. It may end up looking like that. So we may not get resolution on the punter until right before the start of the regular season.
Yeah, wait till someone gets cut, and then Sean Payton can say, "Let me look on you with my own eyes."
Yeah. So that's one where you might have to trust the process on punter. There's also Matt Hawk is out there, and he punted a couple of years for Darren Rizzi in Miami. And Matt Hawk may well be the meat lover's pizza in the trunk.
You need that sometimes, Mace.
Yeah. Sometimes.
You know what we need? Help on YouTube. How can folks do that?
Nice segue. They can
They can comment.
They can share.
They can subscribe.
They can dance.
If they want to.
They can hit that notification bell too.
They can ding. So that's you.
Never miss vid.
That's right. He's Andrew Mason. You follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammy saying OBT's BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.